acknowledge our horror and sadness about the terrible anti-Semitic hate speech in the form of 2 swastikas that occurred last week at Susa. Dr. Hines is going to address that when he presents in a few minutes. Lastly, tonight we also have the required budget hearing, which will be presented by Mrs. Callahan. After she presents, the community will have the opportunity to ask questions. There will also be a presentation by our wonderful guidance counselors, who you will meet in a little while, on social and emotional learning during this pandemic and plans for next year. Thanks again for being here. And we can start with the meeting now. And we will start by taking community comments. If you have a comment, please use the function on your screen to raise your hand and you will be called on.
Regina McLean is asking to speak. Regina, you are allowed. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Regina McLean. I'm the president of the Port Washington Teachers Association. On behalf of all of the 500 members, over 500 members of the PWTA, our teachers, social workers, psychologists, guidance counselors, and nurses, thank you for the recognition that we received about National Teacher Appreciation Day. Over the past year, Port Washington teachers have gone above and beyond, from remote teaching and hybrid instruction to keeping our students safe in person and meeting their social and emotional needs. Our teachers have risen to the challenge. I want to give a special thank you to the parent associations. As usual, the parents are treating us to some special treats at all of the schools this week. They are not letting the current COVID restrictions stop them. Thank you. I also want to welcome the new administrators to the district. Meg Sheehan and Nick Strassweiser, you're not so new, but we are excited to continue to work with you. Juanita Diaz, Priscilla Zarate, and Lori Director, welcome. Port Washington is a special place. We look forward to working collaboratively with you for years to come. I also want to congratulate all of the teachers receiving tenure tonight. It is a distinction to be granted tenure, and you should be proud. We wish you many rewarding years in Port Washington. And lastly, but definitely not least, congratulations to all our teachers who are retiring. Thank you for your years of service to this community. We will miss you.
Thank you, Regina. That was beautiful. Are there any other comments from the community at this point?
No.
Okay, so we can proceed. The next item is certificates of excellence, and I do have that here somewhere. Okay, I'm going to just read this. I believe that the parties have already been notified and hopefully are out there watching. The Board of Education would like to recognize the following Paul D. Schreiber High School students who are being honored as award winners across 3 prestigious competitions: the Long Island Science and Engineering Fair, which is called LISEF, New York State Science and Engineering Fair, NYSEF, and the International Science and Engineering Fair, ISEF. These competitions are for the most advanced high school projects. The participants in these fairs have a chance to present to professionals in their subject areas from local universities, scientific institutions, and professionals in the field. Please join me in honoring the following Paul D. Schreiber High School students. Samantha Radinsky. Congratulations, Samantha. Noah Lowy. And Patrick Doyle. Congratulations to the teachers, Tina Gallagher, Nicole Lapinto, and George Mulbauer. Wonderful achievement for everybody involved, and congratulations to the families of those students. Next, we have the adoption of the agenda. And I'm going to make a motion to adopt the agenda for today, May 4th, 2021. Do I have a second? Okay, Ms. Weisberg. Ms. Callahan, can you please do the roll call?
You're muted, Mary.
Thank you. Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Weisberg,
Yes.
Ms. Bayes,
Yes.
Ms. Brooks,
Yes.
Ms. Epstein,
Yes.
Ms. Gilliard.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, report of the superintendent of schools, and I'm actually first going to go to Dr. Shields for his enrollment report.
Thank you, President Johnson. Good evening. The enrollment report was last completed on April 28th. We had 5,210 students at that time. That's 192 students less than this time last year. The breakdown by level is 128 less at the elementary level, 6 less at the middle school, and 58 less at the high school. And from a kindergarten perspective, we're monitoring our incoming kindergarten class. We're projected to have 391 in our incoming class. So far, we have 325 enrolled. I'll continue to give you updates on that as we progress.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a report by our superintendent, Dr. Hines.
Thank you, President Johnson. Good evening, everyone. We've had quite the busy past few weeks, and before I get into that, I want to thank Regina for her beautiful words in regard to our teachers for Teacher Appreciation Week. I actually think we should make it a month, not a week. A week is way too short. And as she said, and I totally 100% agree with, they've gone above and beyond, and not just this year, but certainly since last March, the previous March before. It has been nonstop, and they have been in the trenches making all the difference in the world for our students. So thank you. And before I update the community about Weber and about Schreiber and elementary desk shields, and want to briefly touch upon summer programs for students, and of course the anti-Semitic hate crime at Sousa, I'd like to start with a story that I've heard from Alan Watts as buses pass my office right now. My apologies if you hear the buses. Big fan of Alan Watts, and he shared this story about 50 years ago. Now, he's a British writer and a speaker known for interpreting and popularizing Buddhism, Taoism, and Hinduism for a Western audience. So bear with me, please, for a few moments. He shared the famous story of the Chinese farmer, and it went something like this. Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer who lost a horse, ran away, and all the neighbors came around that evening and said, "That's too bad." And he said, "Maybe." And the next day, the horse came back and brought 7 wild horses with it. And all the neighbors came around and said, "Why, that's great, isn't it?" And he said, "Maybe." And the next day, his son, who was attempting to tame one of these horses and was riding it, was thrown off and broke his leg. And all the neighbors came around in the evening and said, "Well, that's too bad, isn't it?" And the farmer said, "Maybe." And the next day, the constriction officers came around looking for people for the army, and they rejected his son because he broke his leg. And all the neighbors came around that evening and said, "Isn't that wonderful?" And he said, "Maybe." So you see, the process of nature is integrated, and it's immensely complex. And it's really impossible at times to tell whether anything that happens in it is good or bad, because you never know what will be the consequences of a misfortune, or you never know what will be the consequences of good fortune. And it's the same for school systems. They are incredibly complex and integrated because they are human systems. They're organic systems, which leads me to my updates, because I have quite a few. And some will feel that we are doing good, and some will think that they are bad. And the reality is, in my humble opinion, it's neither. We are doing what we feel is the best for our kids while listening to the input of our staff and the school community. We listen to the input and then a decision is made. Now, since our last board meeting and our pause regarding bringing back all of our secondary students full-time, we have spoken with our attorneys, with our teachers, our staff, administrators, and of course, the Nassau County Department of Health, focusing on how we can make this happen. And I'm happy to announce that we have figured it out thanks to our dedicated staff. The Weber Instructional and Protocol Committee met in April to discuss how we could unpause our plan, and they did. We surveyed our staff and parents, and after working with the Nassau County Department of Health, the district was informed that we could move forward safely. And that is fantastic news. So yesterday, our students returned to Weber full-time after 14 months of not having the school experience of 5 days a week. And it is an experience I think many of us took for granted pre-COVID. It's been a very long time, and I can tell you when our district office visited Weber over the past 2 days, we saw a lot of smiling faces, and that's a wonderful feeling. Now, of course, there were some things that we needed to iron out, and of course, the Weber staff is doing that. And you need to understand, because it's really important, that we utilize the same process at Schreiber. The Schreiber Instructional and Protocol Committee met in late April to discuss our Schreiber students returning and unpausing that plan. We surveyed our staff and parents, and after working with the Nassau County Department of Health and our attorneys, the district was informed that we could move forward safely. And there are some important points to know, as President Johnson pointed out in her earlier announcement. On May 12th, this will be used as a remote day for all students, and virtual student assemblies by grade level. They'll take place. On May 13th, juniors and seniors will return. And on May 18th, freshmen and sophomores will return. And we look forward to seeing our students together again in a few weeks. And on an aside, for our seniors on dedication day, as I mentioned in the fireside chat, it's very hard for me to articulate something that is so powerful to see most of our seniors here, or many of them, showcasing where they're going to school and seeing their friends for the first time, I think in a very long time, at least here in school, was a very moving experience, and we are very proud of them. Now, in relation to the desk shields at our elementary schools. At our last board meeting, some parents inquired about the elementary desk shields coming down now that the CDC and the New York State Department of Health no longer necessitates them to be in school. So the question was, should and can they come down? At the meeting, I expressed my concerns that we may have parents and staff members wanting them to stay in place for the rest of the year. Now, Dr. Mioli surveyed the staff and parents and found that a significant portion of both populations were uncomfortable with removing the desk shields until next year. And among the comments recorded, a number spoke to the concern in particular about lunchtimes when students are unmasked at their desks. So the decision after reviewing the school committee's input is to have the desk shields stay up for the rest of the year. And again, going back to my opening statements, and it's been really common throughout the year, and we understand this. When decisions are made, we'll have, parts of the community that are okay with it and some parts that aren't. That's just been the way it is, but you need to know that we put a lot of thought into this, and we do appreciate the input from the staff and the communities. Now, the community should also know that my cabinet and I have been meeting with our principals and directors about how to utilize the federal money that we will receive to support our students over the summer. And we are moving in a direction that will be very helpful to our students at all grade levels. So I'm happy to report that. But finally, let me touch base about, and I think it's safe to say that our whole community was appalled by the anti-Semitic hate crime that took place at Sousa just over a week ago. As a district, I know that we took this very seriously and worked closely with the Port Washington Police Department, the Nassau County DA's Office Hate Crimes Unit, Chief Joe Gim, who is meeting with me tomorrow in my office. He's an amazing person. He's coming to my office tomorrow and is going to discuss how he can work with us in the future to assist us moving forward. We all know Helen Turner from the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. She has reached out and she's working with us very closely and looking forward, I'm looking forward finally to meeting Joe Mizell this week. I'm meeting with him to discuss our future collaboration together. And that's the thing, you know, it's one thing that we understand that this horrific event took place, but now the question becomes, what are we going to do about it moving forward? We're not sweeping it under the rug. We're not going to wait for a week to go by and we forget about it and we move on. That is not the case whatsoever, not even close. A special thank you to Detective Michael Sita who was instrumental in making this arrest. He will be recognized at our upcoming June board meeting. I'm happy to share. And as I stated in my communication to the community last week, the alleged suspect is a minor who is one of our students. And in truth, we, the collective we, and I'll speak for the school district, must do a better job internally in what we teach as a community. We must work together to drive out hate in our amazing community. And I'll have an update soon regarding our plans and next steps as we come together as a community. Congratulations to our staff receiving tenure. I know what that's like, how exciting that is. And again, as Regina said before, it is a milestone. It is something you should be incredibly proud of. We are so excited for you, and I look forward to that celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hines, for that thorough and heartfelt statement. We really appreciate it very much, and it explains a lot. I think now we're up to the presentation of a very special certificate, and I think that's for you too, Dr. Hines. The PWTA certificate.
Hold on one second. This is the PWTA certificate for the tenure meeting.
I actually think it's for Teacher Appreciation Week. I looked at it before. It was in the, it's on the agenda. I can pull it up.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
So as we said before, my apologies, as we said before, both in your statement and certainly as we've discussed, this is a very important week, as I also believe it should be a month for teacher appreciation. So this certificate that we are not showing virtually, but it's a certificate that showcases the fact that we deeply appreciate everything that our teachers have done for this year. And please know, moving forward, that we look forward to the rest of this year being a true success. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. I think the entire board and everybody up here fully agrees with that. So thank you. Thank you many times over. Okay, and now without further build up and ado, we're going to get to the Tenure Awards. And the way we're going to do this is we're breaking it up. There's sort of three categories of people that are receiving tenure tonight. First is the number of administrators. So be it resolved that the Board of Education, on the recommendation of the superintendent, awards tenure to the following individuals. Now, we have already seen this list, so we can vote in advance. And then Dr. Schultz announced, is that what we decided? I'm just trying to remember. Yes. I got the shake from Julie, and I know she knows. Okay, so we've seen it. So all those in favor, do I have a second? Yes, okay, Deb Brooks, I have a second for the motion to award tenure to these individuals who are administrators. And if Ms. Callahan could do the roll call, we can announce the names and get it going.
Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Weisberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Bays,
Yes.
Ms. Brooks,
Yes, of course.
Ms. Epstein,
Yes.
and Ms. Gilliard.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Dr.
and the award of tenure went to Dan Saccone, Weber, Assistant Principal, and Victoria Borsella, who works for the district as our Associate Administrator for Early Literacy. Congratulations to them both.
Congratulations. Well done. Okay, next we are, this is the teachers. And again, I will repeat what I just said before. Be resolved that the Board of Education, on the recommendation of the superintendent, awards tenures to the following individuals. And I think there are probably about 26, 27. We see all the names here, so we can actually vote before they are announced, just to expedite the situation. Do I have a second on the motion to award tenure? Yes, Emily. Ms. Callahan, if you could do the roll call. I'm a yes.
Okay, you are a yes, and then Ms. Weisberg,
Yes.
Ms. Bays,
Yes.
Ms. Brooks,
Yes.
Ms. Epstein,
Yes.
Ms. Gilliard.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the teachers that are receiving tenure this evening are John Barth of Schreiber, Physical Education and Health Department, Brian Beach of Schreiber in the Math Department, Caitlin Carter of Guggenheim, Physical Education, Jessica Castaneda, Guggenheim Daily Split for Music, Kevin Clogacy, Weber, Physical Education, Katya Dimitriadis of Schreiber's English and English as a Second Language Department, Alexander Eisen of Daly as an elementary classroom teacher, Deirdre Fronda, Manor Haven, elementary classroom teacher, Jessica Guarino of Salem, English as a Second Language teacher, Melanie Guarneri of Manor Haven, elementary classroom teacher, Heather Heckel, Weber in the art department, Stephanie Hernandez, Schreiber, foreign language, Vincent Giacaruso, Schreiber, science, Casey Marks, Schreiber, math department, Jennifer McRae Fitzsimmons, Manor Haven, library media specialist, Jose Mejia, Schreiber, social worker, Christine Rivera, Weber, art, Kira Sexton, Weber, reading, Mark Viavatni, Manor Haven and Sousa, music, Sandra Josephowski, Schreiber, physical education. Congratulations to all of you.
Oh, I do see that Dr. Hines has his hand raised.
I do. I improvised my blurb, and now I'd like to formally read it, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Thank you. So it says Tuesday, May 4th, 2021 is National Teacher Day, and we are honoring our Port Washington educators and acknowledge the crucial role they play in shaping America's future, with a certificate to be presented to Regina McLean, President of the Port Washington Teachers Association. It is the mission of the Port Washington School District to educate and prepare all students for a rapidly changing world and to encourage lifelong learning in our community. Our teachers are the standard bearers of this mission, and through mutual respect, open and honest communication, ethical behavior, and personal responsibility, they bring the district mission to life for their students on a daily basis. Our students achieve success in academics, athletics, the arts, and community service because of the knowledge, experience, expertise, and caring of our teachers. And I will add, I know they deeply care and love our children, and thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. Okay, and now we go to the our teacher assistants who are also getting awarded tenure. And again, be it resolved that the Board of Education, on the recommendation of the Superintendent, awards tenure to the following individuals. Again, we have seen the list, so we can go ahead and vote in advance of their names being announced. Do I have a second in the motion? Okay, Emily and Ms. Callahan, if you could do the roll call.
Yes. Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Weisberg,
Yes.
Ms. Bays,
Yes.
Ms. Brooks,
Yes.
Ms. Epstein,
Yes.
Ms. Gilliard.
Yes.
Thank you.
And tonight receiving tenure is Lorraine Clapper of Daly, Jean Windish of Schreiber, Suzanne Young of Manor Haven, Maria Dunlop of Guggenheim, and Anna Maria Palermo of Guggenheim. Congratulations to all 5 of you.
On behalf of the board, I just want to again say congratulations to everyone who received tenure tonight. It's a fabulous milestone and a very well-deserved milestone in your careers. And may you stay with us for many years in Port Washington. Thanks. Okay, next item on the agenda, we are going to approve the minutes of April 20th, 2021, the Board of Ed meeting, Policy and Personnel Work Session of April 21st, 2021, the minutes, and the Budget and Facilities Work Session minutes. I don't see, oh, the date is 4/29/2021. Do I have a second? Okay, Julie. Ms. Callahan, if you could do the roll call.
Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Weisberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Bays,
Yes.
Ms. Brooks,
Yes.
Ms. Epstein,
Yes.
and Ms. Gilliard.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we're up to our 2 very exciting discussion items. The first of which is the budget hearing, and probably the less exciting of the 2. But if Ms. Callahan would proceed. And remember now, to the community, I see we have at least, I don't know how many there's 88 participants. I don't know how many of them are community members, but please feel free to ask questions after the presentation.
Thank you. This presentation has been made verbally a number of times in the last 2 weeks. And so I have not put forth a PowerPoint for the community. I am hoping at this point that a good number of people have already heard this at least once before. The Board of Education, through a very long process that begins in the fall, ultimately resolved on a budget increase of 2.48% and a levy increase of 2.067%. The goal of the board was to compare this new budget to what was in 2019-20 rather than this year, because this year was an anomaly. Overall, we do not see any major program changes. The Board of Education and the Superintendent are working on vision and mission work, and also dealing with a longer term goal of equity in the district. And the consensus was that next year will be the time, once these other major factors have been addressed, for the board to then look at program with the various building administrators and see what we now would have considered to be outdated, what should be replaced with more relevant programs. The 2.48% budget increase itself is basically increases in pension costs, health insurance, and the contractual agreements that the Board of Education has with our various bargaining units. As it relates to the 2019-20 budget, there has been an increase of 3 teachers, but at the same time, due to retirements in the district, we have an attrition of 3 teachers, so the budget is neutral relative to staffing. The budget vote itself is May 18th from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. There has been legislation passed specifically this year relative to COVID for anyone who feels uncomfortable coming to a large area, concerned about social distancing. You can apply for an absentee ballot and mark it as illness, but this is a one-time option that is strictly because of COVID. It is a multi-step process to get a ballot, so I would suggest that anyone considering to do this, do it as quickly as possible. You can come to the central office to get that application and complete it, and then you would be given the ballot. We're not allowed to give you a ballot for someone else, so understand that involves the U.S. mail, and we have no control over the U.S. mail. So please try to be timely in your requests. I do not know if any of the board members would like to add to this, but I would say that in prior years, when we had a budget hearing the night of tenure presentations, there was not even a presentation that was made because people were so tired already of hearing about the budget. But I am truly happy to answer any particular questions an individual might have, because this, again, is a very unusual year.
Are there any board questions? I don't see any hands. Sometimes I miss them in the with the lighting. Okay, how about any questions from the community?
Yes, there is some questions. No, maybe not. Somebody had their hand up, they took it down. Doesn't look like there are any community questions either.
I might add, because I know it has been a question asked at some of our other meetings, the school district did receive an additional $1.5 million in foundation aid. The district was very fortunate. When I say we're going to receive, it's a promise. We expect that this estimated amount from the state will arrive next year. But in extensive conversation with Board of Education, knowing that in developing the tax levy for the community, that the board was already taking $2 million out of the district savings account to supplement that tax levy, the thought was to take any additional state aid for next year and to use that to help replenish the district savings, because we do need to look not only at this year, but at the long-term health of the district. And there has been newspaper articles about the federal aid that is also expected to come to Port Washington. That has been very clearly stated, not to supplement or not to supplant the current budget. It is not supposed to be used as a replacement for general education costs. It is supposed to be used to provide additional programs to look at the social emotional issues of children that they have experienced during COVID, to work on the facilities for additional health and safety items and for programming that will help students with any catch up that may be necessary. And I do know that, as Dr. Hines mentioned earlier, there have been extensive talks about how that money will be used, but it cannot be used as part of this general fund budget.
Thank you for that clarification. Are there any questions now from the community? Okay. We can now move on to our second discussion item, and that is a presentation on social emotional learning by three of our fantastic guidance counselors. We have Jen Biblowitz, who is the elementary guidance coordinator and who has also been a guidance counselor at SUSA for a number of years, quite a few years actually. And welcome to Jen. We also have Franny Wiener, who I haven't seen in a while, but she was both of them were my daughter's guidance counselors. And Franny is now the middle school guidance chair. So welcome. And third, we have our newest member here, and it is Lori Director, who is the interim guidance director. So, and I mean, that's easy to remember. But I want to welcome Lori and welcome to the Port Washington District. You've been here for a while now, but thank you so much for joining us. Our three professionals will be giving us this presentation that we're all looking forward to. So I turn it over to you. Thank you.
And I'm actually going to butt in just for a minute to set the stage, President.
Of course.
So thank you for that introduction. I'm going to share a PowerPoint in just a second, but I wanted to echo my real delight in being able to introduce this triumvirate for the first time. And it's kind of fitting that one of our first meetings this school year was about social emotional learning, and one of the last will also be devoted to it. It's a very important topic this year. So I'm going to hopefully share my screen. Let's see. All right. Are we good? Can people see? Yep. Okay. So I just want to give just a very brief overview. You know, this has kind of been the year of the pivot. We've made lots of changes this year, and not the least of which is this change in the guidance structure. And I think we have been watching very carefully how our students have been managing, and we've been trying to find ways to help them get through this year in many different ways. You're going to hear specifics from each of the three grade levels. Of course, you know, we've had three different platforms, and we still do for at least another few days. We've had remote learning for some students. We've had hybrid for some. And the elementary schools, as you all know, many of the students have been all in since October 1st. And as Dr. Hines said earlier, we look forward to having almost all of our students back in full time sometime in the next week and a half. I want to mention, because it's not part of this report, that, you know, we're going to talk about student needs tonight, but I think everybody knows that there are many needs that our staff have and our parents have. And these three leaders in guidance and the whole mental health department has really been working with all of us as well. And so I just want you to keep that in mind too, as they go through all of the things that they have been doing this year. I also want to make just a small kind of differentiation between mental health, because you're going to hear both of these terms. And so when we talk about mental health, we're talking about helping students with their adjustment. And when we talk about social emotional learning, which is what we tend to talk about most, we're really talking about having students learn to self-assess and self-monitor. And so that's part of their education process. At the first social emotional learning presentation, which was part of a curriculum committee, we reviewed how social emotional learning is part of what's called a multi-tiered system of support. And again, that is part of what you will hear tonight. So I just wanted to reiterate that most people have heard about response to intervention, and that is the multi-tiered support system for academics. In other words, that about 80% of our students do just fine in regular classroom. About 15% of our students need a second tier of support in academics, and about 5 to 10% of our students need very specialized support. That same tier system is required by the federal government and the state for behavioral intervention. And so you'll hear some references to that. And I wanted to make sure it's not spoken about anywhere near as much as the academic tiered system. So I want to make sure that we keep that on the front burner as well. We've already talked about this new guidance paradigm, and I just want to thank the board for supporting it. When we did lose our guidance director mid-year, the superintendent met with a number of people, and I think, as you will see, the synergy of these three leaders at each of the levels in the school system is just amazing, and I think it's one of those ways that we see how the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. And then finally, as the superintendent has said many times in terms of looking at how we're adjusting this year and continue to adjust this year, we're not only trying to take care of our students today, but we're preparing for September when we hope and we expect that we will be getting back to as normal a lifestyle as we can in education. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jen Biblowitz, who's going to talk about the elementary level.
Thank you, Dr. Mioli. And thank you again to the board for supporting this paradigm, because I think that in the very short time that we've been working together, information is flowing freely, and we're really, supporting one another, which means that we support the community at large. This meeting is very timely because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So here we are talking about mental health and social emotional learning. Understanding that emotions drive every decision-making, creativity, relationships, health and well-being, understanding how emotions matter helps us to have a healthier and more equitable, innovative, compassionate school community. This is really actually an abbreviated list of all the things that happen in the elementary school. But what I've done is highlighted some things that are specific to when the pandemic started in March. We continued, of course, individual and small group counseling. The small group counseling, of course, is different from school to school because of space constraints and pod mixing, but the counselors are really trying to be as creative as possible. Every elementary counselor, including pre-K, is assigned to a virtual learning platform classroom. They connect with that teacher regularly. They push into that classroom regularly. And some students, if they were having a particular hard time, will connect with either their counselor of their home school or their psychologist. The psychologists and counselors at the elementary school work very closely together. It's a very much a team approach. All the counselors have set up Google Classrooms, different kinds of Google Classrooms, some specific to grade levels, where kids can be invited in and lessons are shared, or sometimes we teach virtually from there. Also Google Classrooms for teachers to access information about more responsive classroom, more trauma-informed schools, so that when we first came back to school, they would have the resources needed to support the social and emotional learning and growth of our kids. There are some things that we like to try to keep the same because we know that continuity for our elementary school kids is really important. So when Unity Day rolled around, we got creative and tried to mimic what we typically would do, tweaking it a little bit, obviously for COVID protocols, but we wanted to have that whole group shared experience so that kids will feel part of a group, even though they're in their smaller group pods. All the counselors collaborate with outreach agencies, resources inside the school district as well as outside of the school district. And also I know the board has been ruler trained, and ruler, for those of you who don't know, is an approach out of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, where it teaches children how to recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate their emotions. The board has been trained, and we're so grateful for that. There have been elementary groups that have been trained, elementary teacher teams that have been trained, and then we're even expanding upon that in the district. So the SUSE team, implementation team, we have been doing Ruler for 6 years now. We created a Google Classroom specific for the implementation teams so that the other teams wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel when they finally are up to the turnkey part of sharing Ruler with their staff and with their families and students. So we tried to make it a little bit easier for them. I've personally been meeting with some of the Ruler teams of other schools, and trying to support them in any way that I can. At the beginning of the pandemic, when we first shut down a year ago in March, the elementary counselors created a newsletter that we found a platform that can be translated into 100 different languages. So we really wanted to make sure we could get our information out to families to support them, because we knew that families were embarking on this new thing about learning at home and routines and juggling their own work life and parenting. We did a lot of parent training. We continue to do parent training. We just sponsored a parent university, which was all about COVID fatigue and anxiety. We continue to do things like that. And as Dr. Mioli said, Francine Weiner and Lori Director and I have been meeting regularly, and the exchange of information has really been very helpful to all of us. All the elementary counselors do have articulation between the buildings, because sometimes students move from building to building, as well as articulation to Weber, because all of our 5th graders will be moving there. And another note about the elementary counselors is that over the summer, we found a training online about trauma-informed schools, and we felt it was very important for us all to become more familiar about that when we came into reentry, to support our staff and our families upon reentry. So we did that independently. And to say that this year has been a challenge would be an understatement. The mental health staff, the counselors and psychologists and social workers in the district have been stretched quite more than we ever imagined, but we are working really hard to try to meet the needs of all of our students. I'm going to turn the page, Dave. So just a little tidbit of things that we do in the elementary school. Social emotional learning is woven into everything that we do. We teach growth mindset and grit and internet etiquette and careers, resilience, communication, and strategies for emotional regulation, just to name a few. We try to weave it into every subject and every interaction that we have within the school. And now I'll hand it over to Franny Weiner, who is our new lead counselor at Weber.
Thank you, Jen. The district is so lucky to have the elementary counselors because many school districts don't, and that was very impressive. The next 2 slides will cover all that was done this year during the pandemic at Weber Middle School. In the interest of time, I will highlight only a few. So school-wide, we continue to have our anti-bullying program called Alveus. The program meets every 4 to 6 weeks, and it's facilitated in small groups of 12 students by the home-based teacher and by a home-based partner. This year, the administrators and counselors paired together to do several small group check-ins. This was done remotely on Google Meets on Wednesdays, and it was multi-graded. To ensure we had a good response, an invitation was sent to the students through their new school email, and parents were also emailed. After the first round of meetings, we re-invited kids who may have forgotten. It was very important to us to make an effort to hear from all the children. These groups gave students a chance to discuss with us what was on their mind. We covered topics about getting connected to school, joining clubs remotely, the Wednesday schedule, and how to support one another. We made sure the kids were heard. We then shared the feedback to the teachers in a Google document, and we also shared it at a faculty meeting. We had College Awareness Day, which is today, in fact. This aligns with the Career Development and Occupational Studies. This gave teachers an opportunity to discuss their career paths and the universities that they attended. To build morale and to make connections, we had Spirit Days. So they have included this year Pajama Day, Hawaiian Day, Plaid Day, and just last week we all wore blue to support Autism Awareness Month. The mental health team. So this consists of 4 school counselors, 2 psychologists, and 1 bilingual social worker. We conduct groups as needed. This could be for socialization, individual education plan groups, study skills, bereavement. This year was done in person if the groups were small. We set up Google Classroom for larger groups. And now that we're all in, as an example, we just started today a 6th grade friendship group so that we can help students make connections and hopefully friendships in and outside of their pods. This will be outside, weather permitting. The psychologist, the social worker, and myself are involved with the Weber Individual Needs. We call it the WINS homework program. This is for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade underachieving students. They are paired with a 1-to-1 high school tutor twice a week, and this is run by a teacher and a mental health professional. The mental health professional's role is really to figure out why the kids are not meeting with success, and there's always a why. We send a letter home with a log of what the kids have worked on every 2 weeks, and we want to make sure that parents are informed and involved in the child's education, and we also offer a support group on a monthly basis. The members of the mental health team run the Humanitarian Committee. This is a group of Weber staff members who help raise funds among ourselves so we can support other students' needs. Examples of how we have helped this year: we have provided students with school supplies if needed, sports gear, clothes, and gift cards. For the holiday drive, we worked with the help of the Parent Outreach Parent Council, and we together raised $15,000. That meant that every family on free and reduced lunch was offered a $50 gift card to spend how they saw fit for their families during these difficult holidays. This year, we needed to be creative with our fundraising efforts. The staff did things like dress down day, jersey day. We took remote exercise classes. We gave complimentary grams to each other. We did door decorating, and we made chocolate pops. And this month in May, we are doing a virtual K. The mental health team, just like the elementary counselors, speak to the outside therapists and caseworkers so we can have a complete picture of a child and support them in school and at home. Next slide. The school counselors. So there are 4 of us, and we each have a caseload of over 315 students. This year, we met with every student individually for a social, emotional, and academic check-in. Last year, this may have been in our office, but this year we went to the kids. We bought stand-up desks. We found classrooms that were open. We made sure that we had privacy, but this was a pod check-in, and it was just the culture of what we did this year. And it was very important coming off of being remote. For the remote students, we did this either by calling home or through a Google Meet. Behind the scenes, the counselors meet with the core teachers and the assistant principals on a weekly basis. We talk about students proactively and reactively, and we invite the school social worker and psychologists as needed. Between the individual check-ins, students stopping by, parent calls, and the team meetings, we start seeing the at-risk students on a weekly basis. 2 counselors run what we call the Olveus Weber Stars program, and this is a positive behavior reinforcement program. A letter will go home telling the parents or guardian about what their child did well. The student is acknowledged during their home base in front of their peers, and they get a special breakfast hosted by Mrs. Javelin, who comes to meet with each nominee, and then a star is put on a bulletin board outside the Weber Guidance Suite. This year, we had a 6th grade summer orientation in August. The counselor, along with the core teachers, ran this program, and it was done to get the 5th to incoming 6th graders into our building. We wanted them to feel welcomed, to feel safe, excited, and comfortable about the year ahead. Just last week, the counselors connected with every student who decided to go fully remote or to come back all in. We sent emails to those children that were coming back, and we let them know that we would be checking in with them, which we've already done. For the 6th graders that had never been in the building, the counselors stayed after school and met with them and gave them an individual tour. The psychologists and social workers, they provide counseling for individual educational plan mandated students and non-mandated students. The bilingual social worker provides family outreach and engagement. She translates for Latino families, and she, in coordination with the Port Washington Public Library this year, put together a curriculum and provided school technology training for non-English speaking parents. At the end of the day, it's all about having a positive school environment where children can feel safe, make connections, and learn. And I think Weber has done a great job this year. It's now my privilege to introduce Lori Director, the Director of Guidance for the district.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. My name is Lori Director, and I am the Interim Director of Guidance for Port Washington Union Free School District. Tonight, I would like to thank the Board of Education and Dr. Hines for your support of this new paradigm, and to Dr. Maioli, Jen Biblowitz, and Fran Weiner for your collaboration this evening. Franny and Jen, I have really been enjoying our work together so far, and every day I am energized by the work that is happening at all 3 levels in the district. But tonight I'm going to talk about social emotional learning at Paul D. Schreiber High School. At Schreiber, a collaborative approach is used in our multi-tiered system of support. Together with Dr. Pernick, the building and district administration, the faculty and staff, our focus is on the social emotional wellness of every student. So while we're addressing their current needs, we also have our sights on the students' full-time return. We are all extremely eager to welcome them back to Schreiber High School. Our interventions this year moved into an online format to reach students who are learning remotely. We align our practices based on CDC guidelines while ensuring that every student has access to support. As Dr. Maioli said a few minutes ago, pivot and flexibility have been key to our work this year in reaching the students where they are. Our assistant principals connect with their students through small group meetings and individual check-ins. In the guidance department, Schreiber High School counselors provide direct support either in person or virtually, and use a developmental approach to meet the individual needs of our students. Regular check-ins are provided as well as outreach to parents. Referrals are made to the social workers if further intervention is needed, like Dr. Maioli described a little while ago in that multi-tiered system of support. If we need to bring it to level 2, our social workers are there for us. Some of our current priorities right now include the 8th to 9th grade articulation and ongoing conversations with our seniors to ensure that their post-secondary plans are solidified. Additionally, counselors are providing resources to our seniors and their families to assist them with their transition to college. Junior college and post-secondary conferences have taken place, as well as academic support and career awareness for all students. As a department, we are in conversations and already making plans for next year. Our mental health team of social workers and psychologists have also increased their virtual engagement with students. They engage in crisis intervention, peer mediation, and parent outreach. Links to community resources are also provided as needed, and our social workers provide bilingual Spanish interventions with students and families as the need arises. Other school-wide initiatives this year have included a Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center workshop identifying symbols of hate and the impact of those symbols and the damage they cause. The Holocaust Center also hosted a faculty meeting on ways to recognize and eliminate implicit bias. The Feeling Through Experience documentary was shared with students, staff, and parents to raise awareness and promote inclusion in our community. This month, Mental Health Awareness Week, and we're celebrating that all month, but Mental Health Awareness Week is the week of May 10th to May 14th. The Full Support Club will be in the lobby of Schreiber High School to promote mental health and wellness for our students. So this has been a snapshot of Schreiber's response and our social emotional supports and learning in response to COVID. As we expect the impact of the pandemic to continue for some time, we will continue these conversations with members of various departments so we can explore a cohesive approach to future social emotional learning initiatives at Schreiber High School. I'll send it back to Dr. Mioli.
Thank you. Thank you, all three of you, for that very comprehensive report. I'll just end with two thoughts. One, just piggybacking on what Lori ended with, which is that we look forward to expanding our work in this area. You heard about the ruler training at the elementary school. We are also planning on offering that to people who are interested in the middle school and high school levels. There'll be, more to come. We'll continue to monitor and assess the situation moving forward. And I really look forward to the work of this great trio of leaders for our social emotional learning and our mental health. And the last, I realized as I was watching the presentation, I'll echo what Ms. McLean, one of the things that Ms. McLean said in a community comment, which is that, in many ways, the first line of defense for all of our kids is the teacher. And so, during this week, I think it's fitting to end this by saying that all of the teachers, have spent time checking in with kids. We discussed it certainly this summer in the instructional committees as part of how we were structuring our days. When we talk about that 80% of kids, a lot of what happens on a day-to-day basis is just the love and care of the great staff here. So I'll end with that.
Thank you.
Over to President Johnson.
I'm going to try that again. Thank you very much to our trio, our wonderful trio, and we're very excited to have this arrangement, and that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Dr. Mioli, and I assume that will be posted on the website because that was a lot of information to take in at one time, but very, very impressive, and it really feels good to know that all of this work is being done, and I thank you for that. Now I'm going to ask if any board members have any questions.
Dr. Hines has his hand raised, Nora.
Oh, Dr. Hines. Okay, why don't you ask the question?
I have my virtual hand raised. First of all, thank you to our presenters. It's when I first came here, I remember when I met with the board, one of their concerns was not the guidance department itself as far as the work that they do, but the structure that was in place. Meaning, is it too big of a job? Is it so? It's very different at all three levels between what elementary, middle, and high school does. And we certainly listened to what the counselors thought might be a good model. This is something that was discussed, and to see it actually in action is really great. So between, Franny, Jen, and Lori, I think this is something that is really going to work moving forward towards next year. And it's important that we future forward and we think about what that looks like and what else we can do to support this construct, or as they mentioned, paradigm. The second thing is, clearly, I think we are doing a lot, especially this year in regard to mental health and SEL work. But we're going to dig deeper next year for sure. And so, we will certainly give the board an update once we get the new year up and running. So you are up to date with all the different things that are taking place. But I'm very proud of this work. And clearly, it's very hard to learn in a school or outside of school if we're not doing well socially and emotionally. It's very difficult to do. Even as adults, we know that. So certainly for our kids, and we take that very seriously. So thank you.
Thank you. Let me just see. I just want to mention at least one of our board members, Deb Brooks,
She's
lost.
back. I brought her. She's back. She's Deborah B. So I don't know if Deborah has a question. She can't.
I know. I just asked her if she did.
Her camera's not on.
Well, I think she had a problem. She lost her internet. She just said I don't know when she put that post up, but she texted me to say that she had lost her connection.
I know.
And yeah, she's typing in a question.
But Deb, I think if you can't unmute and ask a question, we don't have to see you, but I think you can unmute. Deb, you're unmuted.
There's no camera on her desktop, so that's why she can't. She's using a different device.
She should be able to speak though without a camera. No microphone on your desktop, Deb?
Good idea. The only issue I foresee with that is that people.
No microphone.
Okay, while Deb types her question, I guess I just wanted to thank our counselors here for doing this presentation. And I guess as a board member, I know that it's been a difficult year, and I know that you've had to pivot more than once. And so is there something that you need from us? Is there something more that we can be doing to support you in your efforts, is my question for you. If not, you don't have to answer. Do it all. It's okay.
There has to be an answer to that out there, Emily. There has to be.
Well, that's a big question. It's a big ask.
We could think about it and get back to us.
To be honest, I would love to see more bilingual, mental health staff. That's really so important because we could be serving certain populations better than we are. And that would be, obviously we would all say, hey, we would love more mental health staff at each level, but just to have someone who could communicate well with the kids and the families, so we can have family engagement and students doing well, because you can't do well unless you feel good about yourself. You asked, so that's my answer.
Well, thank you. No, that is something we are working on and focused on very much.
I would totally agree with what Franny said. I also think, we used to, many years ago, have these community liaisons that did outreach with us, which was really important. And, we haven't had that in many years. And that's been a deficit for us as counselors, because we are now doing outreach at a different level. And that takes us away from class time.
We have actually talked about that as well, and have heard that from community members too. So thank you for reiterating that and bringing it up. I see that Deb has typed in a question, and I'll read it. I was wondering what the mental health climate at the schools was during the school year. Did any of you observe any increase in issues, or were the kids pretty settled into school? And how are the needs of the staff met? I don't know if anybody wants to take that.
I can start it off because I'm fortunate enough to be in all the schools, and I have spent a good deal of time over the months, checking in for not, for instructional reasons and social emotional reasons. And I think I have said before publicly that one of the great things, we look for lemonade when we get dealt lemons. And one of the things that I think we've seen is actually a decrease. I mean, it is just kind of an observation. I don't have any data, but I think the kids have been generally a lot kinder to each other and more tolerant because things have been so difficult for everybody. And I think everybody feels that. I don't know, maybe the other three can chime in on that. And then I can also talk a little bit about, well, I'll just say the staff. I mean, when we met with Mark Brackett over the summer, Dr. Hines and Jen Bibowitz and I, who's the creator of Ruler, he was so beat because, he's responsible for the social emotional learning of, literally hundreds of thousands of people through his program. And we remarked about that. And I would, of course, never say anything like that about our wonderful guidance counselors, but I will say that they have not only, that's why I put it in the overview, not only have they done, a yeoman's work working with our kids, but they've been supporting each other and our staff on a daily basis. It's not appropriate to talk about any individual cases here, of course, but I have been witness to many, many conversations with staff members, just trying to, hold them up and supporting them. So they've really done kind of triple work this year, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
I would also say the HSA really helped set the tone at Weber. They provided food trucks the first day we came back, and that really set the tone. I think we were so happy to be back, and we were scared, and we knew what the kids were feeling, and we had to be role models as well. So I would say that with, the counselors, we are everything to everybody. I feel like we support the teachers, we support the kids, we help the parents. So, and then we lean on each other. And, sometimes in our suite, we would have lunch together on Fridays and we would talk business, but we would talk about our families. And we didn't do that this year because we have to be socially distanced and appropriate and safe. So, it's good to see everybody and lean on each other, but I think we really tried to be everything we could as best we could, and hopefully the summer we'll get here, we'll recharge. I know for me, working with Jen and working with Lori has been wonderful also because we can bounce things off of each other. There's a trust, but I think that's why we did some of those spirit days, some of those fun things so that we could, it could be a little bit more uplifting as far as, some of the challenges that kids face. A lot of that stuff that happened on the playground and the elementary school, I'm sure, Jen, there was a lot of conflicts. I think this year parents were probably more like, there's a pandemic going on. You don't need to speak to your counselor about this. Let it go. So it's kind of changed. It's more old school in some ways, but now that kids are back, it might be different again. But I feel like the kids really adjusted much better than I thought. And the anxiety that I expected to be dealing with, maybe some of those kids were remote. Maybe some of those kids, the hybrid model was better for them. So I would say, we work with whatever came our way, but I think we did a pretty good job because the kids were much more settled than expected.
Thank you.
I think at the elementary level, I'll reiterate what Dave said, the counselors have really been supporting everybody, but the teachers as well, because it was scary. We were all in October and it was scary, and we needed to give each other the permission to feel, as Mark Brackett tells us, and create space and understand that we don't have all the answers. No one's ever lived through a pandemic before. And if we just remember what and continue to focus on the emotions, if you can name it, you can tame it, and things don't look or feel as scary. And I think that was the work with the adults as well as the kids, and the kids are a lot more resilient. And it is difficult at times being in one small pod, but we are all managing and trying to be creative, and it's amazing to see the kids outside learning in learning groups outside. It's a great way for them to learn, and it's been tough, but I think we've all really risen to the occasion.
I think you have too. Thank you.
I'll just tie that up and just to bridge a little bit upon what my colleagues have just shared. And I've been here for exactly 1 month. And I've seen that kindness that Dr. Mioli has described. I see so much compassion and dedication in just in some of the outreach, some of the conversations that I can't help but overhear. You know, the guidance suite is, we're 8 counselors in there and a clerical staff, and everybody has just been so welcoming and supportive and helpful. And I see kindness among the teachers and between the counselors and the teachers. And I think there's a lot of hope, I want to say. In addition to that, I feel, whether it's due to the increased vaccinations or it's springtime and the sun is out, I think there's a sense of hope. And now that we know that the kids are coming back, I think we're all really just energized to now get back to some of those in-person dealings and interventions and all of the great work that's happened in the past. Looking forward to the future and having that again.
If I can just close this loop real quick. Here's what's going to make a big difference for next year, come September, is that over the summer, our staff gets to just energize, and we love being in school, we love what we do, but they need to be with their families. They need to do what they need to do to get ready for next year. They didn't have that last summer, and it's really, really important that our staff has that. So we are at 100% moving forward in September. That's going to make a major difference. So as we finalize our plans for next year, which is a big part of this, I think we're going to be in a much different place come September.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. And if there are thank you again for that fantastic presentation. If there are no other questions, we can continue because it is getting on in the evening. And we're up to the committee reports. Policy and personnel, I think Deb is not able to speak, but there is a policy and personnel committee meeting on this Friday, which will be combined with the curriculum committee. So I think Rachel can probably speak to that when curriculum comes up, if that's okay, Rachel?
Deb is
Yep.
typing. Oh, there's Deb.
Oh, she's back.
I spoke too soon, I'm sorry.
Deb, unmute.
Oh my God, it's like being on the dark side of the moon. It's like, wow. Okay, so wow, right on time. So thanks for waiting for me. So April 21st, we had our policy and personnel meeting. We welcomed Nick Strassweiser, Weiser and Priscilla Zarate into the directorships in our district for health phys ed and athletics and ENL respectively. At the time, we were firming up the position for the Manor Haven principal and the Sousa principal, and I will leave that till later. We have good news. So we looked at several policies that we are, some of them we are giving to administrators to look at and others to our attorneys. So we reviewed the audit committee policy that's going to Ms. Callahan for her input. Online distance and remote learning, Dr. Hines will bring us some feedback next month. Sexual harassment of students, our attorneys are going to review that and come back to us with that. Same with student gender identity, same with attendance. And finally, we looked at the student disciplinary code of conduct, suspension of students, and we all agreed that with the very important work of NYU coming, they will review those things under the lens of restorative justice and equity and so forth, and come back to us with a recommendation. Our next meeting for policy and personnel is May 19th, but on May 7th, which is this Friday, we're going to have a joint policy and curriculum committee meeting to address giftedness and the accelerated programs in our district.
Thank you. Budget and facilities, Beth.
Hi, everybody. We had a meeting last week as the budget. Oh my goodness, my house is very loud. I'm sorry. As the budget process sort of is winding down, we had a brief presentation of the budget, and we moved on to some additional facilities presentations, which was sort of well needed. This is the time of year we start to look at facilities and things that we want to work on for next year, and things that are up and coming for the next few years. We had a conversation about the bond construction and where the 2015 bond work was at. Construction starting at Schreiber very shortly, and the construction at Weber is complete, and then Daly, I believe, is going out to bid. Mary, I could be wrong about that, but I think Daly is getting ready to be bid.
The bid opening will actually be on the 7th. It is the second time that we have bid this project, so we're hoping it comes in within budget this time.
We did have a brief conversation about the fact that construction supplies, particularly wood, and steel have gone up in ways that nobody could have possibly even imagined or anticipated, far beyond normal inflation. And we discussed, doing another building conditions report and when we would start working on that. So that was our last budget and facilities meeting. We are looking at a date for our next meeting, so stay tuned. I think we haven't sort of settled on one yet, but we will soon.
Thank you. Curriculum Committee, Rachel.
So as Deborah said, our next meeting is Friday, and we will be discussing giftedness and gifted education in Port Washington. The only thing I would add to what Deborah said is that you should be aware there are several documents on board docs. We will be looking at our policy and sample policy, and we will have a presentation from Dr. Mioli on the status in our district. But in addition, normally the documents we post are not lengthy in preparation for these meetings, but we also have a report that was done on gifted education in Port Washington by a consultant at the district's behest about 5 years ago. And that is there as well. So if you are planning on attending and you are so inclined, you should take a look at that and read it in advance. We'll see you Friday.
Thank you. The safety and substance, is there anything to report?
We haven't met since our last meeting, and we're meeting again May 25th. So we'll report later after that meeting.
Okay, thank you. And likewise for diversity, there is nothing to report. And in fact, we are going to pause the diversity committee meeting until we finish the NYU Metro Innovations and Equity and Social Change. That work is until their report is completed in June, and we will see what direction we want to take the diversity committee, and working in partnership with what we find out from the report of NYU Metro. Legislative task force, is there anything new to report?
No, the legislative task force has not met. However, the legislative task force, with the help actually of Larry Greenstein, who's not here tonight, but is a key member on the task force, has been in touch with the Nassau County Department of Health. And it was through this work that I think we were able to get more clarity on the reopening guidelines for the high school and Weber. So that's really the work that we've been doing, not actually meeting, but speaking to our officials, our elected officials, so that we can get more clarity. So that's the only update.
Okay, thank you. Now we're up to the action items, and the consent agenda is 12.1 to 13.1. But before we vote on that, I want to note first item 12.1.3, and that is we are accepting a donation in the amount of $1,210 to be applied to the Boyle Scholarship Fund at Schreiber donated by anonymous person or persons, but I want to thank those people for that. And I also want to note under item 12.4.1, and I want to welcome, because we will be voting on the hire of 4 new people. And one is Juanita Diaz, the new principal at Manor Haven. So welcome. I don't know if Ms. Diaz is watching, but welcome, and we're very excited about that. We also want to congratulate Meg Sheehan, who is becoming the full-time elementary principal. As well, full-time she was, but she went from interim to non-interim to permanent actual elementary principal at Sousa. So big congratulations to Meg. We also have Elise Kreis, probably, elementary teacher at Daly. Welcome. And finally, the hire of a new district treasurer, because Rosemary Ruggiero, who's with us for many years, retired. And Donna Viola is joining us as the new treasurer. And I want to congratulate her and welcome her aboard. If she's not here, we'll do it at another time. But those are some of the new hires. Right now, then, I'm going to make a motion to adopt items 12.1 through 13.1 on the consent agenda. Do I have a second? Beth. Ms. Callahan, could you do the honors?
Yes. Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Weisberg,
Yes.
Ms. Bays,
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
Did we lose Miss Brooks again? No, okay,
She said yes.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
I didn't,
Miss
I'm
Epstein?
sorry, Miss Epstein.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Are you a yes?
And Miss Gilliard.
It's pretty anticlimactic now that Ms. Epstein and I are both saying yes too, but I'm going to still do it anyway. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Nora, Dr. Hines has his hand up. I don't know if he wants to.
Again? No.
I know, listen, not to prolong this meeting.
It's up in the corner
but
of my screen, so I can barely see it, but go ahead,
no,
Mike.
that's okay. I just think you blocked me. That's okay. I'm totally kidding. In all seriousness, I want to thank Dr. Shields and his office. There has been a tremendous amount of new hires from January to where we are right now, and very, very important positions. Very important positions. And so I just want to thank him for all the work with the committees coming together. You know, this is certainly coming from his office, but also, and Elaine too, with the treasurer for sure. It's a lot of coordination. There are a lot of parents who have joined these committees. There have been a lot of administrators and teachers and staff members. So we appreciate your input, and we have some amazing people joining us moving forward, and we're very proud.
Thank you for adding that, Dr. Hines. Appreciate it. Okay, is there any old business? Looking for hands, okay. Any new business? Okay, yes, Emily.
Thank you. So, Dr. Hines, you mentioned earlier in your superintendent's report that there are going to be some programs that you are going to be putting together with regards to the federal funding that may run over the summer. So I would like, if possible, for you to give us an update, more in-depth update to the board, perhaps at our June 8th meeting. I think that's our next meeting, right? So if you could have that so that we can have that information and pretty much find out if there's anything else you need from us, if that's possible.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. And I'd like to talk about maybe some other things moving into next year as well, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily, for bringing it up. And thank you, Dr. Hines. Okay, now is the, actually for tonight, the third opportunity for the community to be heard. Many people, a number of people are still out there watching. I don't have the exact number, but we have quite a few actually. Are there any comments from the community?
All quiet.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. I just want to mention again that the next meeting is, Julie, you see somebody have a
I
comment?
see a hand just went up, actually. Yes.
Yes, we just had a comment, a hand came up, Mr. Jordan Wolf, so I will allow to talk. Mr. Wolf, you may unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. I wanted to ask a question on the heels of the decision that was emailed to us this afternoon about the desk shields. I'm curious, under what sort of metric are we going here when we get a survey sent to us as a community and then are asked, what do we feel comfortable doing? And then the decision being made goes against what we as a community decided, but also goes against the guided policy that the CDC has put out. I know that in conversations with my children and with other parents, that the desk shields are not a neutral phenomenon. They're not something that is causing no harm. Kids are actively being prevented from seeing through these desk shields. So in light of the shields, one, causing harm for children's ability to learn, two, being not deemed useful or serving any purpose by the CDC, and three, being disapproved basically by a majority of both teachers and parents. What exactly is the standard that we're using for making decisions?
Well, thank you, Mr. Wolf. What I didn't say before, but what we have said is that we don't answer questions at this time. It's actually community comments, which I hadn't explained, but it has been community comments for many years. We do have your email address and we can get back to you. I think there were certain, without belaboring the point, there were certain assumptions I think that you made there, but there is more information that we can share with you about what the actual, what the community did say about the shields and the reasons for them staying up, but that will be sent to you separately. That's okay. Correct, Dr. Hines?
That is correct. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you though, Mr. Wolf, for your question.
That's it. There are no more questions.
Comments, I hope, because it's really what this is.
Right.
I realize that kind of late in the game, but it is community comments, but please go ahead.
There aren't any more, Nora.
Okay.
You could end this meeting.
I know, I was, I just don't want to be cutting people off. Okay, I just want to say that the next meeting is going to be on the 18th after the results from the election and the budget vote, of course, come in. So stay tuned for the timing and for the link for that.
So that's usually after 10 p.m., right? Mary, is that usually at 10:30?
Yes, I did explain that.
It's on for 10:30. That's usually what time.
Right.
Yeah, but sometimes it's a little bit later. It just depends. But plan on 10:30, guys, people out there, and we will see you then. So, and we'll probably see you before. But thank you, everybody. Thank you to those. Once again, first of all, happy Teacher Appreciation Week to all of our teachers and teaching assistants out there. And I don't know if there's probably a day for all of the other people that fall under the PWTA, such as the nurses and the psychologists. And I don't want to forget anybody, but there are nurses, psychologists, anybody else under social workers under that umbrella. If you have weeks where you're celebrated, we will mention it. But if not, happy Teacher Appreciation Week to you too, because we greatly appreciate you and the guidance counselors, I believe, are part of that group. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, major congratulations to the people who received tenure tonight. wonderful milestone, and I'm just sorry we can't be there to bump elbows and congratulations, but thank you. Thank you for your time here so far, and we look forward to you being with us for a long time in the future. And on that note, I will say good night.